In progress.
Yeah.
Happy Monday. It's exactly 12:30. We're going to kick off RCA meeting. Happy to see you all. Really quickly as we get started, still some housekeeping rules, likely not much longer, but just in case, if you don't know, a couple of things for Zoom. If you'd like to make public comment, you can use your raise hand button. We're also monitoring the chats for questions. And if those of you that are joining us just on the phone, you'd like to speak, you can dial *9 and that will signal that you would like to make comments. So that's our remote housekeeping. That will take us to roll call.
Thank you. It doesn't quite look like we have a quorum, so I'll go through and do roll call slowly. District 1. District 2.
Here.
District 3.
Here.
District 4. District 5.
Here.
Banning.
Here.
Beaumont.
Here.
Calimesa.
Here.
Canyon Lake. Corona. Eastvale. Hemet.
Here.
Carupa Valley. Lake Elsinore.
Here.
Menifee.
Here.
Moreno Valley. Marietta. Norco.
Yes.
Paris. Riverside.
Here.
San Jacinto. Temecula. Wildemar. We are short a quorum at the moment.
What are we short? Did you record? I see Temecula's on, but did you record Temecula?
No, I did not see Temecula or hear them. Temecula?
Not
Oh no,
as on.
Temecula's here as the alternate for
Oh, okay.
Supervisor Washington. Oh,
Got
I
it.
see Corona coming in. City of Corona.
Here.
Thank you. That brings us to 12.
Yay. Awesome. So we have a quorum.
We do.
Thank you so much. I had asked Miss Colleen if she would lead us in the pledge. I don't know if she reconnected. I can't see her face.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I'm on here.
All right. Well, we would love for you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance if you could.
Okay. Okay. Everybody ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to take us on our agenda to agenda item number 4, which is public comments. Are there any requests to speak?
I didn't receive any, and I don't see anyone on the meeting.
All right, we're giving you just a second to say, and then we will move on. Thank you. No additions or revisions that I'm aware of. And so this is going to very quickly, we're at lightning speed today, going to take us to our closed session report. So I'm going to turn it over to legal counsel for that.
Yes, we have 2 items on the closed session agenda. One is discussion of real property acquisition. The APN and owner of the property are listed on the agenda. And the second is conference with legal counsel regarding the case number, again, listed in 6B on the agenda.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I think we will then, I think Philip, are we in progress to move over?
Yes, just give me a moment.
No problem. We just wanted to hear your comforting voice that we were moving towards there. Right. I think we're all getting back. Once we're back, I will turn it over to Mr. Devon for our closed session update.
I think everyone is back. Philip, can you confirm everyone's back?
Everyone is back.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, yeah, the report out from closed session is that there is no report from closed session.
Still a report. Thank you, sir. That's going to take us to our agenda item number 7, which is our consent calendar. I will, are there any requests to speak?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, if there are no requests to speak, I will bring it up to the board for consideration.
Emmett will move approval.
Second, Banning.
I didn't have my eyes up. Was that Linda?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I heard the voice, but I didn't see the face. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All right, then with no further discussion, that'll take us to roll call vote.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Corona,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Riverside.
Yes.
Thank you. That item does pass.
All right. That's going to take us to our legislative update. Before I turn it over to David for that update, there's been quite a lot going on, so I'm interested to hear how he continues to raise the bar. There's a lot of work being done here. Is there anyone that would like to speak before I turn it over to him? And I'll bring it back after. Just want to make sure there's no public comment.
I am not seeing any hands raised.
Fantastic. All right, sir, we will turn it over to you for our legislative update.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you today, and I'll provide you with a summary of state and federal legislative activities. The California State Legislature approved a $262.6 billion budget proposal on June 28th, compromising with Governor Newsom on key topics such as economic stimulus and homelessness, among other issues. The legislature reached the agreement days before the start of the new fiscal year and almost 2 weeks after passing a placeholder budget to meet the June 15th deadline. But the budget is not actually completed. While this budget meets the legal requirements to craft a spending plan by July 1, significant negotiations will continue. Some key expenditures will likely be approved later this summer through budget trailer bills and budget junior bills. For example, the legislature and the governor did not decide exactly how to spend billions of dollars to address the threat posed by wildfires and drought. The budget includes $1 billion over several years for wildfire prevention and $3 billion to alleviate drought. But the governor and the legislative leaders are still figuring out how to spend the funds. The past budget included $3.67 billion over 3 years for climate resiliency, but the specific allocation of those programs will be identified in subsequent bills. This may consist of a $500 million investment in California's Wildlife Conservation Board for fish and wildlife protection. On the federal side, the Legislative Affairs team continues to advocate for RCA community project funding requests. While we were pleased to see Representative Takano submit a $3 million request to fund the Kevlar and Wolfskill acquisition project in May, unfortunately, the House Appropriations Subcommittee on the Interior did not advance our request during the markup of their funding bill. However, I have some good news. On Friday, we learned that both Senator Feinstein and Senator Padilla have submitted our funding request for the Wolfskill acquisition project to Senate Appropriations Committee staff. Committee staff will now evaluate and determine if it will be submitted as part of the final appropriations bill. These requests are for the Bureau of Land Management, who is one of the eligible agencies to receive land acquisition funds to acquire the Wolfskill property. Senator Padilla's request was for $4.2 million, and Senator Feinstein made the request of $3 million. We will work with both Senate offices, committee staff, and the BLM to provide whatever is needed to advance these requests. Additionally, the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee approved the Invest in America Act, a comprehensive surface transportation bill. Working with Representative Calvert's staff, the Legislative Affairs team saw an opening in the Invest Act to add the Western Riverside County Wildlife Refuge Bill as an amendment. Both bills aim at delivering infrastructure projects while meeting climate action policies. On June 15th, a joint op-ed by Chair Johnson, RCTC Chair Jan Harnick, and Representative Calvert was published in the Press Enterprise, supporting Representative Calvert's bipartisan refuge bill, making the case that fixing bridges, alleviating traffic, addressing the housing shortage, and protecting the environment do not have to be conflicting priorities. I'm pleased to share that the refuge bill was added to the Invest Act, and it passed off the House floor on June 30th. We took a comprehensive advocacy approach to get to this point. RCA provided its support letter and position. Staff working behind the scenes with congressional staff. Senator Padilla referenced the importance of the refuge bill in the Senate's EPW committee hearing. The RCTC, RCA, and Representative Calvert joint press enterprise op-ed, and a robust social media effort that included tagging elected officials, agencies, and congressional committees. With Representative Calvert's staff leading the effort along with Representative Takano as a co-author, the visible support from RCA, we made the case that conservation and transportation infrastructure are linked. Our efforts have not been limited to the House. Our team continues to work with staff in Senator Feinstein and Padilla's office to explore Senate bill language to ensure bicameral support for the refuge. While there are still several hurdles for the Invest Act to pass out of Congress as the infrastructure package continues to be negotiated, our efforts with the voices from our board are making a difference. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the update. And I also want to say to the board that the staff had worked incredibly hard and a quick timeline to make sure that we could meet the coordination of making sure our support and also the press release was done with in a very tight timeline. So thank you for your hard work on that. Do we have any questions, comments, or considerations for our legislative update? Do you like how he sandwiched in the bad news and then started it with good news, bad news, and then good news at the end? Strategically done, sir. Thank you. Okay, no updates. Thank you so much. We are going to go to item number 9, which is getting to know the MSHCP. For those of you that know it, this is just a highlight on a process or part of our plan that maybe we don't talk about. Today we have a special guest. He's kind of famous. Aaron Hake is going to be giving our Get to Know the MSHCP today. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Well, thank you, Chair Johnson. I'm excited to do this. Getting to know the MSHCP. I am filling in today for Tricia Campbell, who is our expert in the topic that we're going to talk about today. So I'm pleased to do this. It's about the topic of joint project reviews, or JPRs. This is one of RCA's central responsibilities in administering the MSHCP. So what is a JPR? It's actually described in section 6.6.2 of volume 1 of the MSHCP, which I know that you all read every weekend. It is the section that prescribes how this plays out when a property owner comes to us with a property via the Hans process, which is another topic we covered previously in getting to know the MSHCP. The purpose of a JPR is to ensure that projects, development projects or transportation projects, are consistent with the plan. So the JPR provides a consistent method by which to evaluate projects and provide the streamlining benefit that we talk about often versus a traditional piecemeal project by project consultation with state and federal wildlife agencies if we didn't have the MSHCP. So it's important to remember that JPRs only occur for projects that are in these blue cells on the screen. These are the criteria cells. If there is a project that is not in one of these blue squares, we don't review it through joint project review. And one of the things we're looking for here when we have a project within a criteria cell is not only consistency with the requirements of the plan, but whether this land is eligible and described for conservation within the plan for adding to our reserve, which we have about 89,000 acres to go for the additional reserve side of the reserve. So, I'm sorry, my computer froze for a second. The RCA, the wildlife agencies, and each permittee, which are your cities and the county, are committed to following the process that's described in the plan. And an important thing here to remember is that this review process for each project does not limit the land use authority of your cities or the county. The cities and the county still have ultimate responsibility to decide whether a project should move forward. This process is something that was agreed to when your city and the county signed the implementing agreement to participate in the MSHCP. Next slide, please. So here are the steps, and I'll go through them briefly. So first, the permittee, which is the city or the county, works with the project applicant to find the project consistent. This is something that not a lot of people remember, but I want to emphasize here is that it is the permittee that has to decide whether there's consistency or not. We're here to provide advice, we're here to provide expertise, and we're here to provide guidance in interpreting the plan. So step two, once the permittee finds the project consistent with the MSHCP, they send it to us with an application, which is found on our website, and other project-related documents. And then we begin coordination with the permittee, with your city staff or the county staff. And then at that point, once we have a completed JPR application, we have 14 days to provide comments or findings. And this is really important. We have a clock that we have to stick to. And once that 14 days hits, we need to have a response. And once we're done with our review and our comments and our findings at the end of that process, it goes off to the wildlife agencies, California Fish and Wildlife and US Fish and Wildlife. And then they have 10 days to respond. And they have to respond or it's out of their hands. So this is one of the things that's built into the MSHCP that's supposed to streamline the process. So once both of those aspects of coordination are complete and findings of consistency or inconsistency are provided back to the permittee then has a decision to make on how to proceed. There are times where there's a disagreement perhaps between the entities reviewing a project. And when this happens, there is a meet and confer process that's described in the MSHCP. And we'll talk about that in another getting to know the MSHCP session on how we would resolve a dispute where one agency finds a project to be consistent and one finds it to be inconsistent. Next slide, please. So here's a dashboard of what we've done so far this year on JPRs. So you can see on the left-hand column, we've got 11 in process right now. And this table provides a little bit about where they are and what they are. You'll see we have a mix of public projects and private development projects. Most of our projects are in the unincorporated county of Riverside that we review, but we have several within cities as well. You can see that we've got them all over the county and the western part of the county. And so far this year, we've completed 13 so far. And some of the marquee ones there, you'll see a park in Temecula. We've got the Santa Ana River Trail project that RCTC is working on. We have in Paris, we have the San Jacinto River Trail project already done. So this is a close coordination effort between cities, counties, RCA, wildlife agencies, make sure that we're all implementing the plan. Next slide. That's my report. That's getting to know the MSHCP on joint project reviews.
Awesome, thank you. And perfectly timed with Board Member Sobek's comment, right? We couldn't have planned that better. So there, look at asking you shall receive. Are there any comments, questions for getting to know the MSHCP? I know we hear the word JPR a lot, so really important to understand what that means.
Supervisor Spiegel and I'm sorry.
I see her, thank you. Supervisor Spiegel.
Aaron, my question is, you made it clear is that when they're coming through the process, we can't say no or say anything. We can only give information. So basically they can get the whole process and then it can be killed at the end. Do we give them discouraging if we're feeling that it's, because you kind of gave that we're not even giving discouraging information. I'd really hate for us to be telling somebody, you know, there's a possibility, and then we really know that there's not.
That's a great question. So, and thanks for asking to clarify that. So if a project came to us and it was clear that it was not consistent with the MSHCP, that would be very clear in our findings that we provide. The findings documents are very comprehensive. They go through each requirement of the plan, basically takes, here's what the project's doing, here's what the MSHCP says needs to be done. The project is consistent or is not consistent. And there are times where we advise or suggest to, in your case, be the county planning department, that perhaps there are conditions of approval or things that the project should be conditioned to do in order to comply with the MSHCP. And those are advisory measures that then, you know, county planning staff would have to decide, do we want to incorporate that in there or not? But it would be very clear, both to the jurisdiction and to the applicant, whether there was a problem. And a lot of times what I've seen is that in the comments back and forth between us and the jurisdiction, you know, the clarifying questions kind of tease things out. And the other thing I do want to mention here that's available to your staff and your applicants in your jurisdictions is we are happy to meet. There are joint meetings we have with the wildlife agencies on a monthly basis. And actually a couple of the projects on the screen that I showed have come in for meetings to kind of talk through issues so that we can wrap up the process and kind of come to a consensus. Longer answer to your question, but I just want you to know that it is clear, you know, whether it's consistent or not.
All right.
There was a great question. Was there another question?
Yeah, I have one. So Aaron knows what I'm talking about, and probably Ann also. There's a piece of property that's between Norco and Riverside, and it actually is not within the cell system. And so how is it possible to add something? It's 77 acres, but it's just next to. And is there any way to add something like that to the plan?
It's a good question. I'm gonna have to defer to legal counsel, and we're gonna have to do some more research to find out what it would take to do something like that. I don't want to speak without knowledge or authority on that topic, but it's a good question because the property you're talking about is just, you know, barely outside the area where we could acquire it to add it to the reserve.
Hypothetically, of course, right?
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. So what do I do? Just write you an email, Aaron. We talk about that, and CC Stephen DeBon.
Yes, please.
All right, will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think Marianne, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So the way the protocols work now certainly could happen the way that was just described, where developers could go all the way through the process locally and then be denied at RCA. And that has happened. And the other scenario that is even more serious is that projects have been completely approved and finished by certain jurisdictions. It hasn't happened lately, but in years past, and developers never did go through the RCA process. So, and in that case, they ended up owing RCA fees and everything. Would it not correct all of this if RCA became the agency to completely manage that portion of even local development, not to give away local control, but to make RCA the agency that requires everything and that the developers report directly to, and make fee payments to RCA, and then check off that box on their local jurisdiction's application or development agreement. And it could be made a part of the RCA process, very early on. And that way developers could, avoid all of those things. I think for a long time, we've talked about making RCA the oversight and collection agency in that part of the local development process. And I think maybe, this begs the statement as to why we don't seriously consider that. It seems like that would correct a lot of the things that we're talking about right now.
Aaron, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I guess I'll just say I certainly appreciate that perspective. And one of the things we are really trying to do is make sure that we're being completely respectful and deferential to the land use authorities and the decisions that the cities and the county want to make regarding the development in their communities. And moreover, legally and through the mechanisms that are built into the MSHCP itself, the way it's set up limits our ability right now to do much of what you're suggesting. I think that's a big picture discussion that would need to be had by the board as to what the appropriate role of the RCA is, and certainly hear what you're saying. And to that end, in the meantime, we'll continue to coordinate as closely as we can with your cities and the county to make sure that we're providing good customer service and make sure there's good communication through all these projects.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. Maybe, Madam Chair, it's time, along with the transition and everything, to bring that forward and to have that greater discussion. We've talked about it for so many years, and this year has been such an atypical year. Maybe we just throw another thing on the pile and have that discussion and finally get it over with one way or the other.
Well, definitely. I see Anne has her hand raised. Definitely discovery conversation, so we can agendize that, talk about it. And then, Anne, did you want to jump in?
I do, just a few more comments. One of the things that we've been focusing on during this transition in our listening sessions with city staff and county staff, as well as with developers, is hearing the examples where projects and the process didn't align and there were surprises or challenges. So I see this kind of that there's two different conversations here that I think are going to be very important to have. One of them is related to the process and what has happened in the past to allow a project, for example, to get all the way through the process without ever having been submitted to RCA. Where was that breakdown? Where was the breakdown when a project was submitted, findings were made, yet changes weren't made, and there were challenges later on? So we're looking at examples, and we've had some great conversations with staff. And by the way, Temecula, we had a great session with several of the Temecula city staff members to get.
I've been bending their ear quite a bit. So.
Yeah. And so what we've been doing during this transition is identifying where we need to understand more about the process and try to put measures in place that facilitate decision-making and land use decisions and the process, and trying to fill those gaps. And frankly, a lot of it comes right down to communication. It may not necessarily be the process, but it's the communication. So that's one aspect that's a very, very important conversation. And I think there's lots of opportunity there with board feedback, city and county staff feedback for us to make process improvements. And then there's the question of fee collection, which is in and of itself another conversation. And actually, I think we're going to be coming to August Executive Committee meeting with some information and be looking for some direction on next steps for fee collection. So you raise really important points. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here to collectively make some improvements in the processes all along the way, so that this process is as streamlined and clear as it possibly can be, because it seems like there's a lot of confusion.
There is a lot, and a lot of it is communication, and then it's also the will of the developer and the negotiating that they have between developer and local jurisdictions that really is critical. And we don't want to take local control away from cities, but I think there's a way to accomplish this and still have cities retain local control with RCA as the master of the checkbox. So thank you, Anne. Thank you, Natasha.
All right, so we will note that for some discovery discussion. Are there any other comments, questions for our JPR review? All right, Erin, thank you so much. You did a great job. Trisha will be very proud. We'll give her a full report back. Okay, so that's going to take us to item number 10, which is our executive director report. And then I just have a few comments after Anne is done. So I will, before we adjourn, we'll do that, but I will turn it over to Anne for our executive director report.
Okay, great. Thank you. And really pleased to inform everyone, though it's probably more of just a reminder. We have a fully implemented and approved Nexus study. The ordinances went into effect on July 1st. So we have completed the process. I want to once again reiterate all of our appreciation to all of the city staff and county staff, you as board members, as well as your city council colleagues, for going through this process, getting everything implemented. And so the new fees went into effect this month. The next round will be in January. What we are starting now is a process with all of the member agency staff to review the implementation manual as they start implementing. We're sure that they'll flag some opportunities for improvements in the implementation manual. So we'll be working with a group of city and county staff to identify where we can and should make some changes in the implementation manual. And we expect we'll be coming back to you after that effort is completed. And we need several months of in practice to make sure we capture all of the opportunities for improvement. And then we'll be back to you with any recommended changes we might recommend to make to the implementation manual. And we expect these all to be administrative type of modifications, nothing substantive, but certainly administrative process improvements that will allow the process to work for all of your jurisdictions as well as applicants within your jurisdictions. So that completes my update. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Let's see, Julio.
Yeah, thank you. So, I was going to make a comment for future agenda item a little later there, Natasha. So I think I'll just jump in now since it coincides with Anne's comments. And I was going to ask that we talk about a prepayment issue with the fees and some of the issues that have been happening with that and the consistencies and so forth. So thank you, Anne, for bringing this up. I think if you meet with the EC in August, then we hopefully be able to have a good discussion in September. Some of the questions I have are some of the arrangements being made. Does RCA have copies of these arrangements? What's being done on a consistent level across, and something that's equitable for all agencies involved. So I'm really looking forward to talking about this. However, I just want to add one thing, and I know staff has been a little reluctant because of the vastness of this, but the possibility of the RCA collecting the fees directly, the ordinances does allow for that if the board decides they want to go in that direction and wants to talk about that as a policy. So I would just hope that that would be included in our discussion in September as to what the pros and cons would be of RCA taking over that administrative duty. So, but thank you. I'm glad that we're looking into this and trying to get something in place by the July 2022 next set of the phase coming up. So thank you. Thank you, Natasha.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Supervisor Hewitt.
Yeah, and thank you, Julio, for bringing that up too. You were thinking just like I was. I think there's still some loose ends on that, and it's been somewhat of not at any fault of any of our own here, but we have to clean that up. There were certain promises made, so to speak, on prepayment. In some jurisdictions, they've gone fairly smooth. Others, they haven't because of differing ideas on how it should be done. But I think we need to protect all of our member agencies and make sure and maybe even look into the RCA taking those and collect it. It has to work. I know it's a lot more complicated than it seems from the outside, but if we can have that conversation coming up at the next meeting or the following on at the very least, I'd like to see that too. So
great, thank you.
Natasha?
Yes.
I just, on this item number, it also says besides the executive report, executive director, it also says board of directors. Is this where we could make a request if we have one?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I go ahead with that now?
Of course.
Okay. So I just, we've had some conversations from those in the community on some of the properties and how long it's been on the list and such. And I thought it might be nice to have a status listing update. So I'd like to make a request of that.
A status update for, say you kind of cut out a little bit for me at least, a status update on properties that we are currently.
Yeah, land acquisition.
Okay.
That people have put applications in and how long have they been there, and just I thought it'd be good to check that and kind of it'd be good to have that knowledge.
That's a great point. I know that had come up and I know that you would raise that. So thank you for that. I believe that the staff is already in works on gathering information and hopefully we can have that for the next meeting. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ask. Okay. Anything else on the board? All right. Okay, so then before we head to adjournment, and we did it in just under an hour. Nice, there was meat and potatoes, and we got done in an hour. See, that's efficiency right there. Good job, everybody. I do want to talk about our next meeting, which September 13th is our next meeting, and for those, we had some discussion about when we move back into in-person. And so this next meeting will be in person. There will be a hybrid option for right now for Zoom. I know that we all get more meetings done with Zoom because we are logistically in one place and can sign on very quickly. However, we will get back to in-person, and I'm not sure what the schedule looks like for the hybrid option. For now, we have it. I will say I'm looking forward to getting back to in-person. Some of my conversations are what I call hallway memos, and they're the best conversations I've ever had before a meeting and after a meeting with all of you and my colleagues. So I am looking forward to having that opportunity to connect back in person. For those of you that are still going to take the hybrid option, for right now, we're going to be offering Zoom. We had to make sure that we could connect in the boardroom, and we've done all of that. So I thank staff for making the logistics all possible for everybody. And we will see you hopefully, whether it's hybrid on virtual or in person on September 13th. If there's no questions, happy Monday, you guys. We will talk soon.
Bye, have a good week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.